Thank you very much. And I want to give a shout out to Jad and Justin, who have been working on this project with us for the last 8 months. So if you haven't seen their talk this morning on accessibility, it was actually pretty cool. So what I want to do is give you our successes and failures so far in adding an HTML5 client to Big Blue Button. Just a show of hands, how many of you have heard of Big Blue Button before? Cool. Okay, so I'm going to give you a brief summary, just very brief, of where we are in the project. And just a heads up, how many people here have done work with WebRTC before? Okay, so talked about successes and failures. We haven't gotten very far with WebRTC so far. So most of this talk is going to be in the HTML5 stuff. And I have some cool things to show. And I'll try to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing with the WebRTC. It's still kind of coming together. So just a quick overview, a little background on Big Blue Button. Our use of HTML5 in 0.81, which is the version we're working on now, our 11th release, and our efforts to move a client towards an HTML5 interface. So Big Blue Button's been around for over 4 years now. The chief architect, Richard Alam, has been working on it for probably about 6 or 7. So it's an open source web conferencing system. You'll see it in a moment. We've got a pretty good community so far now on our developer mailing list. Lots of activity. We got in the Google Summer of Code 2010, which was great for the project. We've been forked now over 600 times on GitHub, localized into 35 languages. Web Forward 2011, working with Seneca College, Chad and Justin for the last 8 months, Don Mercer as well, Fardad. And we have the only open source project that gives you a money back guarantee. If you can't install it in 30 minutes or less, we give you back your money. So that 61,000 installs, this is actually how it breaks down. It may not be super easy to read, but United States is 14%, Germany is 8%, Russia, big in Russia, India, France, Brazil, and you got to go all the way around the wheel before you get to Canada. And what that means is out of 61,000 installs, only 986 are in Canada. This is amazing. And the reason it's amazing is that we really wanted to build a global project. So you can see that many people in many places in the world are downloading it, and we're just a small bit of it. So that's benefit to the localization that our community has done, which was actually contributed about 3.5 years ago by 2 people in China. They did the first localized version of Big Blue Button. So Big Blue Button, here's a screenshot of it. There's no sort of software limits. If you want to share 9 webcams and you got the bandwidth for it, you can share 9 webcams. Here it is, a collaboration session that we did recently with Mozilla, the Web Forward group. Here's me using Big Blue Button for collaborating with some of our remote employees. And it's the sharing of slides, the chat, the audio and the video. It's got desktop sharing as well. The key focus for the Big Blue Button project is distance education. So you'll hear me say it's an open source web conferencing system for distance education. I try to use the same cadence too every time I say it. But we're very close to the Moodle and Sakai community. So Martin Dagamayas of Moodle. Moodle is a customer of ours. He uses it for his partner meetings, about 50 partners worldwide, once a month. Ian Dolphin, the executive director of the Sakai Foundation, we put a ton of work into making sure it integrates really well with Sakai and Moodle. I'm the co-author of the Moodle integration as well. That means you can set up classes, you can set them to be recorded, they launch from Moodle into the class, you don't have to sign in again. And then when this class is done, the recordings are available from within inside of Moodle, and you can manage the recordings as well. Same thing with Sakai. So, little kind of quick technical, because it's going to kind of fit into the HTML5 stuff. These are kind of the major components of Big Blue Button. There's kind of the Red 5 server, which handles the real-time audio and the video. Red 5 is an open source implementation of Adobe's Flash Media Server. And this project would not exist without Red 5. Big kudos to them. We built the front end, the browser, in ActionScript using the Flex libraries. And so that gives you the nice interface. And Flex Flash has been the best game in town for years to get access to the webcam on Mac, Unix, PC. So again, kudos to Adobe, they do a great job. And then of course the web is starting to move towards providing native access to the speaker or the webcam and the microphone, which is what makes it possible to eventually do an HTML5 client for Big Blue Button. There's a lot of back-end components here. We use Redis to store information from BBB Web. BBB Web is the API front end, so when you call the API calls to create a meeting, it actually goes to BBB Web. Then you call the join URL, the user gets joined and they get redirected to the to load the Flash client. The Flash client comes down and then begins connecting to the audio, the desktop, the video, whatever it needs. So Red 5 takes care of the real time, and you can think of the web application running in Tomcat as a non-real time. And we use some tools here to convert PDF files to Shockwave format files so that the slides come through really nicely. And then the audio is taken care of by FreeSwitch. And that gives us dial-in numbers. So if you have an audio conference bridge, you can have people dial in remotely by picking up a cell phone and dialing in. So the work that we're doing right now for 0.81 is laying the groundwork for the HTML5. So our development process is sort of we go through a development phase, lots of work where the developers and the core committers work on it with the community. And when it's ready and there's no obvious bugs, then we announce beta. To us, beta is really like you could use this and you won't find any obvious bugs. We hope you find the non-obvious bugs. That's what we want to fix. And then we go to a release candidate, and that's a real release candidate. You could install it on a production server. So I'll give you an example. The last release cycle we did, we had 4 beta tests and 3 release candidates. And the last release candidate, we waited for 2 weeks. No one in the forum said anything. We just changed the label and called it a release. So very high standards for quality. We want every release to be better than the last because we want this to be installed in production environments, used by universities and colleges and so on. So 0.81, lots of stuff that's going on with the record and playback. So we want to be able to record all the activity in the presentation window, including the whiteboard movements, the pan and zoom and so on, and play back all the webcams as well. We're using Popcorn for the playback. So I'm going to switch over to a recording I just did a few minutes ago. And, oh, actually, it's going to come to later in a slide. I remember now I put a bookmark in there for it. Okay, so let me go back here. So I'll show you an example of what the playback looks like. The accessibility is being worked on by Chad and Justin. The text tool for the whiteboard, this is a requirement for if you're doing online tutoring and you want to call out something. There's a layout manager to let you manage the windows, move them back and forth. And we've got more APIs for integration, specify like a default layout in startup and a JavaScript API for the client. So you can embed Big Blue Button in a web page and call JavaScript events to say change the layout, join the audio, and so on. So I've got some screenshots here. We're adding a text tool. In fact, I've got the client running. So this is what it actually looks like. It's probably easier to show you. If I'm actually online. I've got a few of the folks at the office who are logged in. And I can chat with them. Hi, guys. Oops, my case. I've got some slides up here. If I make myself presenter, I can annotate the slides. I can do the text tool. So I could draw some text here. Say hi. I think it's just lagging a little bit. Should come up. There we go. Cool. So I can see who's online. I can see who's joined the audio bridge. I can see who's sharing their webcams. I can see the current slide presentation, zoom in and out, and I can chat. So if I was the role of a teacher right now, and you were remote students, you'd probably just make the slide presentation a bit bigger. You'd hear my audio, see my video, and if you had a question, you'd chat. So you can see the text tool, some of the stuff we're working on. This is pretty much a build of 0.8. So there's a layout manager, lets me switch around the layouts so I can do different types of layouts, go back to default. Trying to make the usability as easy as possible. So this is all Flash though, so I haven't got to the HTML5 part yet. So if I go back, text tool there, layout manager, switching the layouts. And then we're doing more with skinning. So let's say you wanted to just create a video phone application with Big Blue Button. You know, so here we skin all the UI so it's black. All you see is a video dock full screen. And if you click on a window, you kind of get this Google Hangout type view. And we have people who just use Big Blue Button for like a video type application, healthcare and others. Okay, so the playback, this is what the playback looks like in the current release version. It shows the slides, the audio, and the chat. And this is what the playback looks like in the version we're working on now. Everything that happens in the presentation window, including the mouse movements, is visible. And you can see we can actually play back n number of videos. So there's only one video file, you see one video. If there's two, they go side by side. If there's three, they go checkerboard. So I have a link here. And if I play this back, so I recorded this basically a few minutes ago. Oh, actually I'll record the one. I'm going to jump to the one I recorded actually a few minutes ago. Here we go. And I'm going to play it back in Firefox because it actually plays back better in Firefox. Okay. So I was just standing here about 15 minutes before the started. So it says you're currently only. And if I just zoom ahead, there I've loaded some slides.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Here we go. Big blue button. Just testing the video. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Here we go.
Actually, it's playing in the background here. Hang on.
1,
Where are you?
2, 3.
I think I have it playing more than once. Okay. But you can see I can scrub back and forth, and it's playing this all back. And this is using Popcorn. So it's very cool. Okay. So let me go back to the presentation. So playback in HTML5, got that. A little bit about the JavaScript interface. Really the idea is that we want to make Big Blue Button more of a toolbox where if you just wanted to use the webcam or the webcam and chat or the webcam and audio or the desktop share, you could kind of pull out these pieces and reuse them. From the open source from the point of view of an open source project, modularity is good because it means other people can leverage what you're doing. They don't have to take the whole bit. So you can think of some open source projects might have started with components and then you build them together. We kind of started with the complete solution and now we're kind of trying to make it break it up into components. There's an example of the keyboard shortcuts for the accessibility, moving the focus around. And we actually had done, using David Seafield, we were at the Hackanooga Hackfest in Chattanooga, Tennessee about a month and a half ago. David came down from here and actually hacked together Popcorn Maker to edit a Big Blue Button recording. Now it goes a bit outside the scope of the current Popcorn Maker because we have all these different panels, but literally he set it up so that because we use Popcorn Maker for playback, the slides came in on the timeline, the video came in on the timeline, the chat messages. You could literally edit a chat message or you could move the slide around. So we're very interested in what's happening with Popcorn Maker because Big Blue Button is both the real-time lecture and capturing it for later playback, just like you saw a few moments ago. But the next step from the capture is to edit the playback or remix the playback. So we could build something out ourselves, but wow, we'd really like to leverage Popcorn Maker. And you can see we've kind of got like a multi-panel approach. We're kind of watching how Popcorn Maker evolves to, we can be at a point where we can give students and teachers the ability to edit a session using Popcorn Maker. Man, that'll be great. Okay, so let me talk about the HTML5 client. It's very obvious to us and has been very obvious to us that HTML5 is the way to go, especially for mobile devices and so on. The benefit of Big Blue Button is we didn't just say, okay, let's write an open source web conferencing system in HTML5. Okay, we'll just start from scratch. We didn't have to. We already had a real-time server. We had a process to move slides, publish them. We had an API. We had integration with Moodle and Sakai. We had desktop sharing. We had a whole bunch of things that are already in place and have been in place for many years. What we needed to do was get a new entry point into that infrastructure that was native HTML5. So in any big problem, the first thing you kind of do if it's too big is just redefine the problem. So we defined it into 3 phases. The first one was we're just trying to make a viewer client. If you can fire up a web browser and see the teacher, hear the teacher, do two-way chat, and see the presentation, we're a long way down towards, okay, you've got like 50 students or maybe 100 students, right? From the presenter's point of view, they don't know or don't care whether they're HTML5 or Flash, they're just all there. And in most cases, the larger the class becomes, students are mostly just watching or viewing, more like a webinar type example. So we didn't have to build the two-way at the beginning to actually have a very useful solution. So what we've been working on right now is just recreate high fidelity what goes on in the presentation area, see who's in the session, see the chat, do two-way chat, and hear the audio and the video. That's what we're working on now. The next phase is, okay, once we get that in place, let's do the two-way audio and video using WebRTC. And then the next place is let's do a full-on client so that it's a first-class client. It can do everything that a Flash client can do. So we're working through, and each one builds on the next. So we've done, I'll show you some UI designs of what we thought about what the HTML5 client could look like. So there it is. That's a client. So this is the simplification, turn it up to 11. So we have one button down here, which is, okay, imagine this is on a browser or an iPad or iPhone or Android. You click that and up comes the control bar. And in the control bar, you can do a few things like look at the users, see the chat, see the video. And then if we add more components, maybe as a presenter, you've got the controls here, you can see the video, you can annotate. These are all mock-ups, okay? So I'll show you where we're at. There's another mock-up of using like 4 videos. So look at the prototype. So this is a screenshot of an actual working prototype, and I have it running in another window, which I'll switch over to in a moment. We've got who's on the web, we've got the presentation area, we've got chat, we've got some controls here. This is the current one that we've got right now, and you can see if I'll show you in a second, but you can actually see the audio, or sorry, the users and listeners, the users, sorry, in the chat. So let me switch over. Okay, so this is the Flash client. Okay, I'm going to demo now. And if I switch over, here's the HTML5 client. So I'm going to put these side by side so you can actually see they're live. Okay, so there, if I'm moving the mouse across, you can see that the HTML5 client is mirroring that mouse. If I look at the users list, you can see the users that are in the session. If I go here, it's going to make this one a little bit bigger. There, you can see all the users that are here in the session. So the state is being mirrored, right? From the HTML5 point of view, you see exactly the same users as you see in the Flash. And if I switch over to the chat side and I make the chat visible, okay, so this chat is live. So if I say hi from HTML5, it's great to be here. And I post that. I go over to the Flash client. There it is. It's right there. A lot of work to get to that point. But it's like all things computers, right? You build all the underlying stuff, and all of a sudden you hook them up, and like, okay, this really works. So we have a developer full-time working on just hooking up more and more of the HTML5. So if I go through here and I start drawing, you can see the draw events are going through as well. So now we're just successfully hooking up all the different events. I'm going to change. We just recently updated the ability to sync the presentation. So I'm just going to move the presentation over here so I can just give it a bit more focus. And I'm going to put this to the side. So what's happening is it's got an extra step. It's actually converting the presentation not to, in addition to Shockwave format, it's also converting it to PNG, but they're very high quality PNG images. So when we actually integrate this in, we'll probably do it as a step instead of at the end. But there, okay. Then now you can see, same as before, I can move the mouse around, but now I've got sync with slides happening. So you can see the current slide. Okay. So actually, if anybody there is connected, you can try this out. If you go to lab3.bigbluebutton.org, I'll show you. We haven't tested this on all browsers, right? So it may not work, and that's okay. If you go to, oh, it should take me right to. If you go to lab3.bigbluebutton.org:3000, you should see a drop-down menu there. Is there anybody trying it out? Hands up. Okay, lab3.bigbluebutton.org:3000. And again, just if it doesn't work, no worries. But you see like an HTML page that gives you a drop-down menu choosing a room. Okay, choose English 232. English 232. Yes. Yep, there, an S. Who's an S? Cool. So do you see? Awesome. Yes. Awesome. Super awesome. Okay, your check will be waiting for you outside. Thank you for planted them in the audience ahead of time. Colon 3000. Look, man, if you get the red dot, you're just kicking it. Like the red dot is awesome. Yeah. So you know, there's so many subtle things here, like latecomers, the state, you know, rolling back when you remove, when you draw and you undo, and the text and so on, right? So we're just systematically going through every one of them. Okay. So I'm going to transition now back to the slides and then just talk about, and then of course ask me any questions you want at the end. I've got a few more slides. So that's where we're at right now. And again, like, you know, I want people to be able to, like, you know, pull open this device, you know, go in, see the teacher, and those draw events, those move events, those were all events, right? We're not streaming a video file down. So when nothing's happening, there's really not much data being go down. But as soon as I start moving the mouse, you're getting events to the browser to say, move this, you know, this red dot is drawn, right? So it's very lightweight on the bandwidth. So I've got a few screenshots here. You can see the HTML5 client back and forth. They look the same. You can see me drawing. This is the HTML5 on the left, Flash on the right, and then there's the chat back and forth. So I'll do a little techie for a moment, just in case anybody's here, but this is all laid out in CSS. So the client is defined almost completely in CSS. So we hope and we believe that as we get to a working prototype that other people can try out and build upon, it'll be very easy to change the look and feel of the client. It's not so easy in Flash, as Chad and Justin can attest to, but you know, if we do things right at the beginning for the HTML5 client, then we believe that you can really rev things quicker, so you can make it look like you want. So this is the kind of the diagram which I've been kind of alluding to as I've been talking about it. So the part in blue, it's the big blue button part, is the kind of infrastructure we've got now. You know, I'll just call everything Big Blue Button Server, and I'll highlight two things: the Red 5, which is the real-time audio and the video. Sorry, is the real-time component, including the audio and video, and the free switch. So there'd be arrows going back and forth between these. The free switch is actually mixing the audio and video and providing us all the voice conferencing. The parts in red is what we had to add to do the HTML5 stuff. So we needed a data store. We use Redis. We already use it in Big Blue Button anyway. And we use Node to maintain all the communication back and forth in the client using WebSockets. And we use Socket.io to do in front of it. The HTML5 client, straight up HTML5. And then we use Raphael for the drawing, all the SVG images, so all this drawn there. The audio and video, so this is going back to phase one. Phase one was really just streaming it. So what we want to do is get a stream of the current webcam, that's handled by Red 5, and the audio, which is handled by FreeSwitch, to get those out, convert them, and to put them out into a streaming server. So we're working on that now. We're looking at using the IceCast protocol. So FreeSwitch knows all the audio. There's a module called Mod Shout, which is currently outputting an MP3. So MP3 is not so great because it's patent encumbered, right? So we want to be open source. So we're actually modifying Mod Shout so it uses the Vorbis audio codec. And then we'll use IceCast, which can take a shoutcast stream and send it to a WebM. So the idea is that we should be able to stream at least the audio. And man, even if we get the audio right, you'd literally be able to see the teacher, follow along, do chatting back and forth. You'd have a working system at that point. You know, and then we want to pull up the video as well. So a couple thoughts about, you know, what have we learned so far? What are we trying to do? So Redis, right now in Big Blue Button, the state is stored inside of the Red 5 server, basically BBB apps. So what we need to do is extract the state. When I mean the state of the meeting, who's in there, what's currently presented, what are the chat messages. This is the state so that when new clients join, they can get everything that everybody else sees. We use PubSub and Redis for notification. I think it's the observer pattern, you know, so you subscribe to it, and when a message comes in to that object, you get notified of it. It's happening all over the place in Big Blue Button, right? The mouse moves, let's notify everybody. A chat message moves, let's notify everybody. So what we want to do is right now, to do this prototype, we're actually mirroring the state inside of Redis that we have in BBB apps. we kind of want to move it out so that Redis now becomes a single unified data store. It actually benefits well for integration because it means anything can talk to Redis and sort of like, okay, I'm going to inject a chat message into the system, right? There's no big API you need. It's just like, there's a data store, go inject it in it. That's our longer term vision. So this is kind of summarizing. It sends messages between all members, it receives it. There's a bit of security for escaping the messages. The whiteboard, we actually have most of the events right now implemented in the whiteboard, like the arc, the text tool, you saw the line drawing. We're just hooking them up now. And we use Raphael to help us do all the objects. SVG is great because it scales and it's vector. Again, we're trying to think lightweight. We're not, you know, again, we could, if we just set up a system where it's like we're streaming down a video file of what was going on in the session, it probably would have been faster for us to do it, but it wouldn't, you know, it wasn't what we wanted to do. We wanted to do things in terms of as efficiently as possible. So let me talk about WebRTC and what we've done so far, or at least tried to do so far. We've kind of concluded that WebRTC is still a very moving target. So it's currently designed for peer-to-peer, but we need a server-based solution, and we need a server-based solution so we can record the sessions. You can't broadcast a lecture and not record it these days. You want to be able to record it. That means all the audio and the video must go through a central server. WebRTC is not going to be a panacea for everything. Firefox and Chrome, so Mozilla and Google, really big behind WebRTC. Microsoft Internet Explorer is advertising its own take on WebRTC. They think it's not quite there and they're suggesting a different way of doing it. Who would have thought, right? There's no support for Safari, right? So that's Apple's choice. And you know, so what does that mean? It means that we'll probably be able to create a really good streaming solution for an iOS device, but to do the two-way, Apple is not going to provide the WebRTC framework to allow us to access the webcam and microphone. You're going to have to probably write, or we'll probably have to write at some point, an iOS app. Yes? So we just use the latest. We haven't tried going back in time, you know.
I'm just wondering about Firefox 8 versus IE 8 versus 9.
We have not done any extensive testing, yeah? Oh, no. Like, we'll be really happy if we get a solid for Firefox and Chrome. And I'll be upfront, right? They're the ones who are promoting the standard, and they're the ones who are really pushing the web forward. Then we will turn at IE and see whether IT will support it. We're not in the game of trying to support proprietary implementations. We're in the game of promoting the open source, right? So, you know, Safari is what it is. It's their choice. So we try to do a few things with WebRTC, and this blog post I found a few days ago kind of summarizes it. It's in its early stage, and we're looking at Asterisk, and they're trying to create a WebRTC interface with Asterisk, and they're doing the same thing, I think, with FreeSwitch as well. And with WebRTC, you should be able to implement a SIP phone, which means you can just from the browser call into a FreeSwitch or Asterisk server. If we could do that, we could get audio just like that, because we already have a SIP server in place. We're using FreeSwitch, but to be able to do a SIP call doesn't seem like it's quite there yet. So the quote here, and that's trying to make JS SIP work with the media plane, and Asterisk today is a painful race. So this is all going to smooth out, we're pretty sure, in the next few weeks and months. And perhaps that's okay for us because our focus right now is really on the web, on the HTML5 side. So some of the things we are looking at, there are a couple projects for doing like the WebRTC to SIP gateway, Camilio, Arizo. We know of these, we haven't really tried them out yet. There's two SIP stacks, SIP-ML5 and JS SIP, which are currently out there, so competition's good. Who knows, maybe Red 5 would support native access through WebRTC. And I certainly know that Asterisk and FreeSwitch projects are very interested to provide easy access through WebRTC, because that immediately means that you'd be able to make a phone call from any browser without having a Flash plugin. And there are a lot of businesses that would be very excited if that was possible. You know, maybe 5 years from now, you are making phone calls, you know, from your phone, but it's with the side of a browser, right? The whole idea of Mozilla, the boot to Gecko, right? Let's bring up Firefox OS and let's just have the browser. That's not far away. So our plan right now is to stream the audio and video. Really, we'll be happy to stream the audio. So we expect there'll be a bit of lag, but it's not going to be so much perceptible because if you're just there, you know, you're listening to the teacher, you don't see the teacher talking, you're going to get a stream of the teacher. And as I mentioned, we're basically making changes to the mod shout free switch module so that it will broadcast Vorbis, the open source audio codec. We use IceCast to broadcast it through HTTP streaming, and we're also looking at using Opus as well, because Opus looks like it rocks in terms of an audio codec. And then the stream the video right now is being handled by Red 5. So we'll pull a stream out of Red 5, we'll do some conversion, and then stream it out again through HTTP streaming. There's some very interesting work being done by a group company in San Francisco called Entropy Wave. They've got one of the developers of the GStreamer project. They were with us in sort of the first class of the Web Forward project. So I got to know them really well, and it's like, wow, you guys are doing kind of a piece that we will need at some point. And they're all open source. And our long-term goal is to use WebRTC for the audio and the video. And that's the sort of touch points for our project. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions anybody has.